Have you ever really thought about walking? It's an activity we do almost automatically. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you actually thought about the action of walking from the couch to the fridge to get a cold drink? Our thought process typically is, I'm thirsty, going to get something cold. Not, I'm thirsty and going to get up off the couch, walk a few steps, turn right, walk several steps into the kitchen. You get my point. Our goal, a cold drink, not the process of walking to get it. Our walk as a Christian takes on a very different meaning, although there is a point of commonality. Both walks get us from point A to point B. In the physical, from couch to fridge. In the spiritual, hopefully, closer to Christ and His will for us. Let's talk about our walk with Christ. The phrase, walk with Christ, is often used by Christians to describe how they are getting along with Him. It should reflect specifically how we are becoming more like Him. In other words, it is another way of defining sanctification. Let's look at our walk with Christ metaphor a bit more closely. There are several people described as walking with God in the Bible, beginning with Enoch and Noah, to name but a few. Walking with God is not an activity reserved for a select few, however. God desires all of His children to walk with Him. What happens when we walk with somebody? Imagine that you and a close friend are enjoying a walk together. You are in close proximity. You talk, laugh, listen, and share your hearts. Your attention is focused on this person to the exclusion of almost everything else. You are in harmony, and you both enjoy a peaceful camaraderie. Walking with God should be like that. When we enter into an intimate heart-to-heart relationship with God through faith in His Son, He becomes our heart's greatest desire. Knowing Him, hearing His voice, sharing our hearts with Him, and seeking to pleasure Him should become our all-consuming focus. He becomes everything to us. Meeting with Him is not an activity reserved for Sunday morning. We should live to fellowship with Him daily. A.W. Tozer states that the goal of every Christian should be live in a state of unbroken worship. This is only possible when we walk with God. Just as walking with a close friend requires saying no to many other things, so walking with God requires letting go of anything that would be a distraction. If you were on a walk with a friend, but you brought your phone and text the whole time, the walk would not be satisfying for either of you. Many people attempt to walk with God, but they bring along their phone-like habits, sins, worldly entertainments, or unhealthy relationships. They know that these things are not God's choice for them, but they pretend everything is fine. The relationship is not satisfying to either of them. To walk with God means that you and God are in agreement about your life. In Amos 3:3 we read, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" To walk with God means you have aligned your will with His and seek every day to consider yourself crucified with Christ, as stated in Galatians 2. You don't have to be perfect, as none of us are. But your heart's desire is to be pleasing to God, and you are willing to let His Spirit conform you to the image of His Son. When the Bible speaks of walking, it often refers to a lifestyle. We can walk in the ways of the world as well. In the New Testament, walking with God is often called walking in the Spirit. To walk with God means we choose to glorify Him in every way we can, regardless of personal cost. And there is a cost. Walking with God also means we cannot also walk with evil people as companions. We choose the narrow road over the broad way to destruction. We don't live to pleasure our sinful flesh. We seek to eliminate from our lives everything that does not enhance our walk with Him. We apply 1 Corinthians 10:31 literally, and I quote, "So whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God." End quote. God's ways are reflected in our thoughts, our actions, our motivations, and our life choices because we spend so much time with Him. It is not difficult to identify people who walk with God. Their lives are a stark contrast to the world around them, like stars in the nighttime sky. They produced the fruit of the Spirit, rather than the fruit of fleshly desire. In Acts 4 and 13, Peter and John had been arrested for preaching and were brought before the authorities. The members of the council were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men with no special training in the Scriptures. They also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus. When we walk with God every day, the world cannot help but recognize that, in spite of our imperfections and lack of knowledge in some areas, we have been with Jesus. How's your walk?